So the mid to late 90s of Bollywood was dominated by movie makers like Suraj Bajatya, Aditya Chopra, and Karan Johar, creating movies that had feel good family values, exotic song sequences shot in Switzerland, and of course, sugar coated love stories. And one movie that came in 1998 shattered everything in Bollywood. It rewrote the history of movie making. Welcome to My Take by RGV. This is Janaki Ram, and today we are going to delve into the details of Satya, which has become the launchpad of many stalwarts that we know today, including Manoj Bajpayee, Shafali Shah, Saurabh Shukla, and many more. So, Ramu, this is an opportunity for me to get more into the details of Satya. A lot has been spoken about Satya in the last 26 years since it's been released. But I want to actually get some more details and unknown facts about Satya that you haven't spoken about so far, hopefully.
I think that's a tall call because obviously, if in so many years, I don't even know how many number of times I spoke about it, so I won't be knowing. But of course, like depending upon which angle you want to ask, I might be able to say something new. Yeah,
Right,
so it will
absolutely.
depend upon you more than me. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I want to start with this. You are born and brought up in pretty much in Andhra and Telangana. You grew up in Hyderabad. Yeah. You studied in Vijayawada, but you seem to get the knack of the understanding of Mumbai mafia, not just the mafia, but the locales, the body language, and the look and feel of the typical Mumbaiya. So how did you get
Yeah,
that?
that is, I think, strangely, the answer is in your question. It's only because I'm an outsider. I was fascinated when I saw Bombay. If I was born and brought up there, I probably would have taken it for granted because there's a surrounding I grew up in. There wouldn't be anything special. When I went to Bombay for the first time, that was when I was in my video library days, and I used to go there to pick up video cassettes. So I was completely mesmerized with the way the city is, extremely rich people and poor living right next to each other, skyscrapers and the dirt and the people living on pavements, and yeah, it almost looked as if it's an impossible thing to govern or how it survives, you know. So I think like when the Dharavi slum, for example, it just looks seamless and endless, and I was told even the police are scared to go inside because absolutely lawless kind of a place. And I saw young children just crawling right next to a suburb railway trains because there's no one there to look take care of them, you know. So all these images kind of made a very heavy impact on me. Of if I take Bombay as a person, so that person impressed me. I took it as an entity. Let me put it that way. Yeah.
The personality of
Yes. Yes. Personality of Bombay.
perfect. So every time Satya is talked about, three things come up. One is Ardha Satya, the other one is Israt Ki Subah Nahi, and Sudhir Mishra's Israt Ki Subah Nahi, and of course Bandit Queen by Shekhar Kapoor. So I want to understand what really influenced from these movies to help you make Satya.
See, definitely Ardha Satya was a very influential film of mine right in the beginning of my career, even before I made Shiva. And Israt Ki Subene, not so much. Israt Ki Subene, he actually wanted Saurabh from that film. That's about, except for that, there was no connection for me. Then the third is Bandit Queen. Yes, it was heavily influenced because the first time I saw a film is so much of authenticity in terms of the storytelling, the characters, and the casting and everything. You know. So, but I would like to put Bandit Queen above Ardha Satya because at the time I saw Ardha Satya, maybe I was in my intermediate. Bandit Queen, I was already a director. I probably saw it maybe a year before Rangila or something. That is the timeline, if I remember correctly. So I was much more mature in understanding Bandit Queen. Yeah.
So in one of the interviews, Manoj Bajpayee said you are actually jealous of Shekhar Kapoor for making Bandit Queen, and you wanted to make a better film than that. Was that Satya?
I mean, jealous, I don't know is the right word, but I was very zapped with the film for sure because I thought it was, I mean, it woke me up as a director. If you really are sincere, you can reach this level, is what I thought, you know. And but the difference is see, Shekhar's film is very authentic in terms of realism, which I don't think is Satya. Satya is typically a mainstream film, which I kind of disguised it to make it look like a realistic film. I do not believe it's really real in the sense, and not as real as Bandit Queen, you know. And yeah,
So you made very diverse set of movies with different genres all the way from Siva till Satya. You touched horror, you touched even a romantic love story like Rangila, musical hit. And how did the one-liner about Satya came up?
uh, see, the one line of Satya actually came because there was someone known to me in who used to live in Oshiwara. Okay, he lives on the 14th floor. So one day he told me that he used to bump into one guy who probably lives around 3 floors above or something. In the lift, they exchange hi, good morning, or happy New Year, things like that. He saw him off and on for 2 3 years, and then one day suddenly his wife told him that police arrested him and took him. Because he's connected to some underworld gang. You know, so he said that is what Bombay does. You can be right next to each other for years and you have no clue who the other person is. Because that is what the apartment culture is. You know, unlike a colony where there are a group of houses, they keep bumping into each other and see each other. They're so cut off. So that was for me the one-line story of Satya. Like Urmila is in love with Chakri, but she doesn't know he's a gangster. You know, and okay, whatever happens, if you can call it that. But what Satya for me was not so much about the storyline, it was the characters. See, when I was, the first time I remember the thought of Satya as a film came to me when I was in Jammu Sugan's house. That's precisely at that time, Gulshan Kumar was killed. You know, he just heard about the murder and he told me and he said he just called me in the morning 7 o'clock and he went there at 8 o'clock or something. So we have this habit of recounting a person's movements when something tragic happens. So suddenly a funny thought came to me. If he woke up at 7 o'clock, what time did the killer wake up? you know and so he also is a human being. He would also have slept in the night and he must have woken up at some time knowing that he has to go to a certain place to execute this job given by his boss or whoever it is. So then it suddenly struck me, we always know about them either when they kill or when they die. What happens in between? What do they do in between is because in cinema we always tend to cut it to the chase. But in real life, you can't cut to the chase. It's always something happening in between. So I thought, let's make a film about what they do in between. That was for me was the first thought of Satya, not necessarily the story. You know. And then what happened when I went around researching and I was meeting people, some of them gangsters, some of them ex-gangsters, or whatever the body language and the way they think and they talk. So almost every character in Satya had a reference point in real life, not necessarily all the time from the underworld. Sometimes it is also from real world. I mean other world. But because of that, I was trying to imitate a character I know through the character, so they look so real because of that. Yeah.
So you made this one-liner where there is a politician and there is a nexus between the mafia and the politicians. So how did you translate that into a full-blown script? How did you end up meeting Saurabh Shukla, Vishal Bhardwaj, and how did you
That
improvise?
is a kind of a part of the thing. See, Saurabh Shukla, I saw him in Israt Ki Subhani. Each of the actors had some kind of a. Manoj Bajpayee was brought to me at that time, actually, by some assistant director. And yeah, that is not something unusual about it, in the context of that. And but like I said, the to reference them very closely to existing characters gave me a lot of clarity because a lot of people don't realize. See, the story moved by characters is different from characters going by the story, because when the way the people react is what which makes the counter reaction and the situation changes. So I was very fluid. I didn't want to fix up this is exactly what the film is.
So you never had bound script?
No, 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 no. We didn't have a bound one line order also.
Oh, okay. So what was the input given to Anurag Kashyap and Saurabh Shukla to write the dialogues?
See,
And
Anurag, all of them have just come at that time.
right,
They're
he was
all
just
very
24.
enthusiastic
Yeah.
and everything. And I think it was like, I had years of experience even before that, because I was already maybe 7-8 years as a
Right.
director. So I think, see, mostly it was in talking, improvising, throwing ideas and things like that. Yes, I said initially that I want to make a dark underworld film, to whatever I just now said. But the interpretations of it was very different. And sometimes I kind of discard something, but something he said attracts my attention. So it kept on building up like that. Yeah.
So, given the admiration you had for Vijay Tendulkar for Satya, you wanted him as the dialogue writer, and you approached him, and then he referred you to Saurabh Shukla. Was
That's not true. Anurag got in Saurabh Shukla. And Vijay Tendulkar, that was very strange meeting I had. When I asked him, because of he wrote Kalyu and all that, uh, he said he'll develop something. And when I went back to him, he said in Bombay a meeting of dons happens. That is the first scene he's told me. I was zapped. I didn't expect a man like Vijay Tendulkar to come up with a line like that. But later I realized maybe because he so much met mainstream film directors, and probably he thought that is how they would like to, how Bollywood used to make the so-called gangster films. Yeah. So that meeting itself, I was kind of I thought we are not on the same plane, and he's too, respected a man because of his theater and all that. So I thought it won't work out with him. Yeah. So I thought I'd rather take someone young and someone who's inexperienced, who will be more fresh.
so in a typical day of shooting, how do you improvise the shot, and what is expected from the shoot for that day? So, how do you collaborate with folks like Anurag
See,
Kashyap?
it's like, for example, when the whole tone of how I was, see, in my mind, it was more like a Shiva, actually, when I started Satya, you know. And I had this scene when this actor, this character, he slashes a razor across Satya's, yeah. That was a cutting point for me, in my mind, when I wrote the scene and I was shooting the scene. But when he did that, I didn't say cut. I just delayed to say cut. And Sushant, being an actor, he suddenly took a cue and he screamed out loud, which I didn't expect. So it startled me. And because I didn't say cut yet, that Manoj Power, he started improvising, "Arey, pani lo," and all that. Now that's a very new kind of actress. I never worked with some people like that in Telugu industry. Telugu industry, typically they will only do till whatever they're told. So because they're all highly experienced stage actors who kind of live in improvisation. So then a thought occurred to me, Satya should be about what happens before the scene and after the scene, not about what's happening inside the scene. You know. So suddenly, if I cut it there, it is there. But now if I don't cut it there, suddenly it will look even more real because of Manoj Pawar saying the line Pani Lao and all that. So most of the time I gave that thing to see what the actors will do after that, beyond the script. Yeah.
That's the reason why Satya is like a masterclass in filmmaking. If you actually look at every frame, it's like a short film. There is so much of intense cinematography and method acting, a lot of contributions that go into each of the scene. So now coming to casting, you worked with Sanjay Dutt from Bollywood, just before Satya. So, what made you choose someone like J.D. Chakravarthy, who was established in Telugu but not so much known in the?
See, I never took him as an established guy. I just felt because I know him as an actor down here, I thought he will suit the role. And but from the beginning, I always was insisting that most of the characters have to be new people. You should not recognize them. Then the characters look believable if they are not recognized. To the exception of Urmila and Govind Namdev to an extent, and Paresh Rawal, everybody else is new. Yeah.
When you first met Manoj Bajpayee, even before Satya, maybe he did a very short role in Daud, almost in like a long shot, batch shot. So, did you actually spot the talent within Manoj
Not
Bajpayee?
in Daud, I spotted him in Bandit Queen.
Okay.
Bandit Queen also had a very small role but very impactful. That is when I actually spotted him. So when he came to meet me for Doubt, I was very reluctant. I said, this is a very spoofy kind of film. I don't think an actor like you. But he said, Ram, I'll do anything. I want work. So I put him as a goon in Parish Rawal's gang. But my impression on him as an actor was from Bandit Queen. Yeah.
So did you know that he would one day become like a superstar and enjoy the stardom?
See, we thought about it in Satya, not in Bandit Queen, not ever shooting Doubt. In the making of Satya, not even when I casted him for Satya. But when we were starting shooting within the scenes, there was this whispering in the unit. Like everybody was talking about him because it was like so unusual to see that kind of an intensity. Yeah.
Right. And how about Shefali Shah? She was very new and she comes from stage background as well.
Yeah. See, Shefali, actually, I worked with her in one scene in Rangila. She played a tantrum-oriented heroine. It was hardly one scene, which no one really noticed that much. And I could see that she's a wonderful actor. Yeah, on that memory, I casted her.
And Sushant Singh, again, he was very new, but he brought a lot of intensity. Though he had a short role, he played a very pivotal character in the overall movie. So how did you end up getting
Sushant Singh basically was recommended by Anurag. Yeah, I didn't know him as an actor. So for that particular role, Anurag called him.
And same with Govind Namdev as Bhau, and he has...
Govind Namdev, again, I picked him up from Bandit Queen. I really loved him in that film. Yeah.
And Makarand Deshpande as lawyer, he was fantastic.
See, Makarand I knew because right from the film, Kayamat Se Kayamat Tak, I was following him.
Okay.
Yeah. So I kind of really liked his body language and things like that. So I know him. I mean, I kept meeting him often, and that's how it happened. Yeah.
I think he was just perfect for that lawyer role. Yeah. You don't even assume what's up with him, what he's going to do next.
Yeah, basically, he said before Satya, most of the time lawyers were cast as very clean shaven, very well combed, very dressed up and educated looking. So to see a guy with a beard and dirty and all that, the people, I still remember the reactions in the theaters. The moment Makarand came, everybody used to laugh. They were like in surprise, not about it, not anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, a mafia hiring a full-time lawyer as one of their team members is very new. And second, the whole appearance and the attire of a typical lawyer was very unlike and unusual.
Yeah.
How about Aditya Srivatsa, who played the Inspector Kandlikar?
He's again from Bandit Queen.
Wow. Yeah.
He played the wife's husband of Fuller Navy in that. Yeah.
So that's the impact of Bandit Queen on Satya. A lot of casting has been inherited.
Yeah.
Excellent. So now I want to talk about certain impactful scenes, that are still talked about, that actually made Satya what it is. JD slashing Sushant Singh. For those who forgot that scene, or if you haven't watched, it's on YouTube by Before You. Go search and watch Satya. It is an iconic film, and some of the scenes that I'm going to refer will actually help you understand the analysis and the technology behind movie making. So the very first shot where the camera starts with Bombay, showing the hustle bustle of the city, and you have JD with just one bag walking. He gets into this tabela, and then he gets introduced to Sushant Singh, who is collecting hafta. And I thought that was a startling start to the journey of Satya, because till then you would assume that he's going to be very subtle and very subsumed in his approach, and suddenly he pulls off the knife from Sushant Singh and just slashes. I think that was like one of the iconic scenes, and it actually sets the stage for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. See, to start with, I have a very heavy influence of Bruce Lee's films, In all Bruce Lee's films, Way of the Dragon, Fist of Fury, always a new guy comes into an unknown place and we see the ambience through his journey. And then something happens. It's exactly the same start I had in Shiva, my debut film also. Nagarjuna comes into the college. Through him, we see the college, JD, X and Y and Z, till the time he kind of misbehaves with Amla. So I think that is a very standard thing I used in many of my films. Maybe in Satya it looked different because the ambience was so different.
Right.
So the point is, a self-respecting guy, and I conveniently never told Satya's background. A normal guy wouldn't do something like taking a razor. So I never even took into conference audience that he's got this kind of a history. from somewhere. He could have been a rowdy shooter. He could have been a criminal. We don't know exactly where he's come from.
Yeah, his identity is completely hidden throughout.
I deliberately did that because I didn't want to explain that.
Right.
Only once he says in the jail cell that, what are your parents? And he says they're dead.
Right.
Yeah.
So the second scene is the interaction between Shafali and Manoj Bajpayee after he comes back from jail the first time. I thought that was like another iconic scene where they slap each other. First Manoj Bajpayee slaps her, and then the door gets closed and she slaps him back. That shot, was it improvised or was it a part
it was. See, the idea of the scene for me was an interview of Francis Coppola, where he said, people cannot relate to someone who can shoot someone in the head, but they can relate to a person who's making spaghetti. So if Clemenza is making spaghetti when he's talking to Michael Corleone, when they're planning to do the murder of this guy. So he said, I thought, so the guy was doing something which probably everybody in the auditorium in some way or the other, various degrees will be doing, that will give in believability to the character of Bhikkhu Matre.
They can relate.
So the fact that many wives nag the husband for coming late and all that, which is the connecting factor to the audience's relatability to the character. So that guy, when he shoots someone, it makes it believable.
Right.
So this was a theory. As far as the performance goes, it's completely improvised by Manoj and Shafali.
Yeah. Excellent.
And one more thing about that, when every review mentioned Shafali, but the incredible thing is, and mentioned particularly that scene, it was in a 3/4 angle. There's not even a close-up of us, actually.
Right.
Proper close-up. Most of it is shot in a 3/4 angle, favoring Manoj. In spite of that, people realize they're brilliance. Yeah.
Right. And there is something very unique about Satya's the shots where each of the characters get killed. For example, Kalu Mama keeps eating his breakfast, idli, and then Guru Narayan's guy was just getting, he was hanging around with all the bruises and blood, and he gets shot with absolutely no notice and no expectation.
Yeah.
While you are startled and you are trying to recover from what just happened, you hear Manoj Bajpayee saying, "Arey, bolna tare," and he just covers his ear, saying that was actually very unlike any other Bollywood movie we have seen, because. And it's not just that scene. If you look at the way Paresh Rawal's character gets shot, there is absolutely no sound. He steps out and there is a groan.
Gasp. Yeah.
That's it. And a lot of characters, including Bhikkhu Matre, the way he's shot is very unexpected and startling. And there is a pattern to every death that takes place in Satya.
Yeah.
So was it like a pattern that you followed, or was it just impromptu?
See, to start with, I think it's basically the point is death will come sudden at any point, and that particularly in that kind of a world. Now, an interesting anecdote about this Paresh Rawal's killing. After I shot it first time when I was showing the film in what we call a double positive, where there's no sound, we just was watching. And Bharat Bhai Shah was investor of the film. And he suddenly, when Paresh Rawal died, he said, "Ramu, Paresh Rawal ko maar diya." I said, "Yeah. But Ramu, well, there's no gunshot." I said, "By the way, somebody shot from a long distance." The reason Aitya Srivastava inspector will be looking here and there, where the shot came from. So when it's shot from a long distance, why will you hear it? So he said, "But Ramu, log samjhenge nahi. You won't understand." I said, "You understood, na? I understood. Everybody will understand like that.
Right.
Some might take a little more time. Now, if you hear a commotion and we go out and we see a guy bleeding, we might not know exactly why. But then we'll start talking or thinking and we realize someone has shot him or knifed him or something or the other. But it was a major thing for him that people won't understand in the theater, how this guy suddenly was bleeding and he died.
Yeah. So just before that shot, he gives a lecture to his wife on how he wants to fix the system. So you would never assume or expect him to go through that.
Yeah.
And same thing with Chandar getting killed. He would be cracking jokes with his colleagues and suddenly a bullet
Yes, I think that pattern, I would say it in a certain level, I would have picked it up from films like Goodfellas, for example, when Joe Pesci is killed and he just enters and out of the blue a bullet comes and the suddenness of it is almost like you are diverting the audience's mind from what can happen. And yeah, that I didn't think of it as a pattern in that sense, that everything has to be done on an instinct level at each point of time. I probably did that. Yeah.
But if you actually look at it, it almost looks like a very orchestrated and very planned execution,
Hmm.
because every bullet that is shot is very abrupt and comes at a point when you least expect it.
Yeah.
The other scene that was executed very well was the theater scene where Urmila and JD
Yeah, yeah.
Chakravarthy go. I think it's Bahar Theater in
Yes, yes,
Vilayapalli.
yes.
So uh, I actually thought it was an improvisation of Gayam, where you have a very similar scene.
Mm.
So even in, of course, Gayam, he doesn't distract people.
I think, see, the difference basically, Gayam is just an assassination attempt.
Right.
Yeah, that is what the whole point is. Here, we're talking about, and then they have information that a dreaded gangster is there, and to arrest him, and then to surround the theater, and he has to escape without his girl knowing, without Urmila's character knowing that he's a gangster that is holding a gun. So I think it's more complex in terms of that. So I don't see a direct connection except for the theater point.
Right.
You know. Now the other thing is um, when I was shooting itself, I felt there was a fundamental flaw in the scene, in the way it is being shot, because I felt it very stupid on the police's part. They'll come and expose themselves on the stage of the screen. Tumhare beach ek bhayanak gangster hai. Why would they announce that? Realistically speaking, they would probably work in plain clothes and outside, and when they're coming out, informant shows, and they would just pounce on him. That is how it will happen. I knew it even at that time. But I thought the importance of Urmila not knowing is the point of the scene, and how cleverly he does whatever he does, to create that stampede. So I narrated it to some assistants of mine, some people, and nobody said there's a problem. So I thought I'll get away, because in cinema we a lot of times use this like Alfred Hitchcock line, where drama begins, logic ends. So, and I did that many times and I got away. So I thought I will get away this time also, and I did it. And then when we sent it for background score to Chennai for Sandeep Chowta, he called me and said, Ramu, the film is fantastic till the point of the theater scene, and it is looking so fake. I thought I'm zapped now. No. Now, every one of his team also felt. But by the time it was too late to do any correction and what to do, and I went ahead with that. And believe me, in the last 25 years, I've not found a single guy who said that what Sandeep Chowdhury said. Only difference is Sandeep saw it without music and sound, and maybe that created it. It can happen.
Right.
So in the final effect of the sound and music, maybe it went over the audiences. They kind of
Right. Now it makes you immerse into that scene.
Lots of times it happens. You're distracting the audience. Right. If you're not giving them the time to think, and film creates an emotion. Right. Some people might come out and discuss it or think about it, and that can happen. But even the critics never mention about this particular thing. Yeah.
And what's with border prominently being shown in that scene?
I think the only reason, because during that time that happened, the border accident, Upar Theatre, I thought it has some subconscious connect to some tragic thing happening when border was being shown.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It actually builds up the mood, because you very quickly relate to Upar. You expect an accident or
Correct.
something fatal that's going to take place. And your obsession with Ganesh Visarjan scene, right? Gayam, it was full blown. The procession goes, and there is a pretty good sequence, and it repeats in the climax of
Satya.
So
See, I feel because in Satya, Gayam maybe not so much it was required in the context, but I think in Satya, because Ganpati is a very, very big thing, especially in the underworld. Right. So they're very, very heavy devotees of Ganpati. So not to touch that was, I think, is complete something left. Which is the reason.
It just makes it incomplete if you don't.
Incomplete if I don't touch Ganpati. Yeah.
But it was very well placed, in the sense, that is the only place where you can find a political leader with minimum security and least expected way of carrying a weapon. So I think that was very well executed. But coming to the last scene, honestly speaking, I have never seen a more dramatized chase and emotional climax than Satya. You would not expect someone who is very emotionally detached, strong, and blunt guy like Satya.
That's what love does, no? That's the whole problem. Yeah.
But that is very unlike your making and unlike your hero's persona.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's the whole point. The flaw in Satya was that he fell in love. See, if he didn't fall in love with Urmila, it is highly possible he could have, become a very big don. He would have
Right.
been still alive, I mean, in the context of the
He
screenplay.
could have
I would
gotten
say.
away.
Yeah, he would have gotten away because he would have wanted to preserve himself. But
Right.
there he exposed himself because of his love. So and obviously that kind of a guy would act like that.
Right. And coming to songs, I think two songs are very well placed and they add value to the overall proceedings of the story. One is Kallu Mama, which is iconic and it actually brings up the boldness and the comfort level that each of them have with each other.
Yeah.
That was very well placed. And Sapno Mein Aata Hai was another fantastic placed song. But others were slightly like, they were bolted on, not built.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. See, at that time when Satya came out, the emphasis on songs was so humongous, and Bharat Bhai said, Ram, we won't be able to promote the film if we don't have songs because there was nothing else except for music channels
Right.
where we can promote films, So that was definitely, I agree with you. But there, especially, "Tum mere paas bhi
Right.
ho."
No, it's a melodious song,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
doubt about it.
as a song, yeah, correct. Yeah, I think even I was, but in fact, Sandeep Chota did the background score. He was
Right.
arguing with me, Ramu, don't have songs. What if Godfather has songs? It looked ridiculous. Which is true. I didn't have
Right.
any logic, but later on, because the film became such a big cult hit, and everything works after that.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
what is the reason between choosing Vishal Bhardwaj for songs and Sandeep Chota for background?
See, Vishal, because Sandeep has done that theme. Da, 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 da. I love the tune. What
Right.
he's done by himself without even me asking, because he's a common friend between me and Nagarjuna. So he played it in Nagarjuna's house, that theme, which is the reason I took him. And at the time I took Sandeep, I didn't have intention of having songs.
Okay.
So then Sandeep was technically the music director. Then when I wanted to actually have songs, because I was very impressed with Vishal's work in Machis. And that is the reason I took him.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it made a great combo. Vishal's songs, melody, and Sandeep Chota is fantastic. You worked with him on multiple
Yeah.
movies, so that worked out very well. And this is more related to the craft. Now, how do you see the sound design playing up into the overall BGM? And as an enthusiast, I always wondered where exactly do the collaboration takes place between the music director, the BGM music director, and the sound designer. I think H. Sridhar, who worked for A.R. Rahman, was the designer behind Satya. I think he's phenomenal. I'm a big fan of Panchatanin and the works that came out of it. So I'm just curious, where do you see the collaboration?
See, they won't be really a connection as much as what you feel. So Sridhar is a great engineer. The point is, once the music director does his work, he rarely is involved with the mixing.
Okay.
Now the mixing engineer will decide where to up the music or close the music or which sound to put or how to play the dialogue is done by the mixing engineer. I'm very, very particular about being in the mixing. Mostly I take the decision.
Okay.
But many times, and on an instinctive level, for example, in the interval sequence, when Makaran says, "Tu samjha nahi apne tande ko, ek gaya to sab jayega." When he says that line, the interval card comes there. Okay, there when the constantly the tang that is repeating, the moment he finished the dialogue, see that push the groove up. That created goosebumps everywhere. Now that is an instinct. You can't really say anybody who's not a part of the thing will never know whether it is a mixing engineer or the director or Excel Y or whatever that.
Do they ever sit on the same table, like the sound designer and the music composer?
No. See, mixing engineer almost is like the director, finally.
Okay.
Only guy who can probably bypass him or overrun him is a director.
Okay.
The sound designer and the music director have got nothing with the mixing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they do their job and they give the tracks. He plays around with all the levels and whatever he wants to do to create something. Actually, mixing engineer is a much more of a creative person, but he's never been recognized as art. It is the reason there's not really a proper understandable award for him.
So to get this right, the sound designer watches the movie independently and creates a track of ambient sounds and natural
He
sounds.
will create that.
Okay.
But how they're used is up to the mixing.
Okay. So he gets the input
He
from
just
the.
gives all the tracks, whatever he thinks should be there or not or whatever. And he might use some creative aspects. Like, for example, Dwarag Warrior, a sound designer. For Booth, he used a lot of industrial sounds.
Right.
Not music. It's just like factory sounds and machines and things like that. That is creative aspect of the sound designer.
Right.
But how they're used, whether they're used or not, is final call taken by the.
So who worked on the mixing for Satya?
Sridhar.
Oh, okay. So he was a sound designer plus the mixer. Okay.
He is not sound designer.
Okay.
He's only mixer.
Okay. Great. And coming to cinematography, you initially worked with Gerard Hooper. I think he worked for a couple of weeks, and then it got handed over to Mazhar Kamran, right? So why was that, and who introduced you to Jerry?
Jerry was introduced to me by the man called Kannan, an assistant director who did it in the film school in New York, when Gerard was a teacher.
Kannan was your assistant director?
Yeah.
Okay,
so I thought it'd be interesting to see it from a foreigner's point of view, which is the reason I took him. And once we started, we had some issues of visa and blah, blah, whatever. And that time the underworld activity was too much, and we had to, at a point of time, stop shooting. So we couldn't continue the schedule. So there was differences. So because of that, he left. And this guy was his grip.
Okay.
That is just either my confidence or arrogance or whatever you call. And so he was working under Jerry as a grip.
Okay.
So I just continued with him as the main cameraman.
So if you have to call out what really stood out in Satya's cinematography, what is that?
I think Satya's cinematography is very, very ordinary. See, cinematography in a kind of it needs to have a definition. Exactly what is it that cinematography is doing? In fact, I will tell you there are scenes in Satya where it is so inconsistent, the photography. In the climax scene, when in the wide shots it is drizzling. Okay, it is shot in rainy season, all the crowds, and then we recreated that Govindamdev scene of one Ganpati, where the action happens, was recreated on Juhu. Main shots were in Chowpatty.
Two different beaches.
So here it was daylight. Daylight means a bright light, and you can see shadows running in some of the shots. And other shots of the white shots are very drizzly and cold and all that, There are times in the attack on Guru Narayan, you can actually see the camera unit shadows in the cars. It is that bad, the photography. Because the picture is worked, people don't realize it.
Right. So
I would say company's photography is far superior.
Yeah,
and of course Sarkar.
We'll come to that. I have a lot of questions.
This is very, very functional photography.
So, did you use a Steadicam for Satya, or?
Yeah, I did.
So,
especially in the beginning shots when that guy, after shooting, the scooter runs.
And let's talk about editing. Apurva Srani, right? He was just 19 when he worked for Satya. So, how did you have this knack of hand-picking talent and interesting work to them with a lot of confidence? So what worked between you and Apurva Srani?
See, Satya was the first time when we used the FPS Avid systems. So before that it was always Steamback. So he was a good operator on that. He understood that machine, which is the only reason I took him. So edit, I'm very, very clear about what I want. So it was edited by two people actually, Banu and Apurva.
Okay.
And Banu was doing the Steamback type, and it was both of us were used in combination. The whole film was not done in the system.
So Danny Boyle, who made Slumdog Millionaire the Academy winner, he actually claimed that he got the essence of Mumbai by watching Satya and Company. So, did you ever meet him? Did you actually? But what do you think would have inspired someone like Danny Boyle?
I mean, I think maybe he just saw the ambience because he's a foreigner, and probably these two were one of the very few films at that time which authentically shot what the Bombay underbelly is. So I think it is more like a reference point, not a reference point for the film, just for him to get a hang of it. Because Slumdog Millionaire has got nothing to do with Satya and Company. So
Right.
the locations probably would have, I mean, as a foreigner, he could have been impressed. I don't think it's about the films he was talking about. Yeah.
Excellent. So this was a very insightful discussion on Satya. So this brings us to the end of the discussion on this specific my take on Satya. Next, we'll talk about Company.